everyone. We are going to be doing chapter 4 this evening. It's confronting the brutal facts that never lose faith. I'm Deidre.
Jenna.
Stephanie.
Ruben.
Yvette.
Jackson.
So some of the main points that are touched on in this chapter are the facts are better than dreams, the climate of truth, and unwavering faith. Like we said earlier, we were being brutally honest with all of you that we have a lot of P's in our group, and then we had Dexter. But we still all came together with this great presentation for you. So Stephanie is going to touch base on the next part.
Hi everyone. I want to start off by explaining where we got the term facts are better than dreams originally. In the book it says that Winston Churchill, he was the Prime Minister of Great Britain during the Second World War. He created a new department called Statistical Office. In this office, the main purpose was to feed him information that was not filtered and basically brutal information about the war. And this helped him to see where he actually stood during the war. And that's why he was very confident that the Nazis were not going to invade Great Britain. And that's after the war he wrote that facts are better than dreams, because he didn't need to, even though the Nazis were all over Europe and North Africa, he knew that they were winning the war. So yeah, that's that. Okay, so facts are better than dreams. On the book it says that successful companies make better decisions than the comparison companies. And by this, and what really helped them was to actually see the actual facts instead of just the pretty picture that they wanted to see. So actual being realist about the information helped them make better decisions. Another thing is not ignoring science. Ignoring science would not help them solve the problem. And not hearing the truth creates an atmosphere of fear and anxiety because we don't really know what's coming up. So yeah, basically the same thing. Companies must infuse review process with the brutal facts of reality. That means that they have to go through real investigation to realize what information is actually important. They must start with honest frame of reference, and this is actually chapter 1 and chapter 2. It talks about disciplining people, and stage 2 is discipline of thought, which is chapter 3 and chapter 4. And the last one is discipline of action, and that's what we're going to see on the next chapters. An example that we got from the book, I think this kind of reminds me of what the other group was talking about, the who and the who before the what. This was the CEO of a big company, and he was very charismatic and a visionary person, but he was not looking at the actual facts of the company, that they were not being successful, and he had a very strong vision, but he was not looking at the facts. So the company had to file bankruptcy, and he was also fired because he was not being realistic. And there was another example in the book that talked about another company that the actual CEO was very realistic, and that really made a difference. So it makes a very big difference when the CEO is not only charismatic and nice, but it also has to do with being rigorous, just like the last group was talking about. So just to recap, what we can get out of facts are better than dreams. We can use this by listening to others during group meetings, embracing the data, actually analyzing what we process, and not watching for what customers want. This is not very helpful because we won't really realize what they want. And cultural of not listening to employees, exactly that too.
Thank you. So we wanted to end this concept of facing, the brutal facts and realizing that facts are better than dreams with another example from the book. And what you see here is an example that discusses A&P Grocers with Kroger Grocers. And it talks about the differences in the way that they conducted business. They were both pretty much the top grocery stores in their time, but one did something that the other didn't, and that was to be real with themselves, be real with the industry of grocery, and face the facts that there was change coming down the way. And that company was Kroger. Some of the key points about A&P and why they were not successful and Kroger ended up beating them out is the fact that by refusing to face the facts, they decided rather to just stick their head in the sand. They didn't listen to their customers' need, didn't realize that with the coming change, people's desires were going to be different, people's experiences in shopping were going to be different, and in the end, they became what they called a remnant of a once great institution. Now, Kroger, on the other hand, they confronted the facts. They saw what was coming. They saw what people wanted and what kind of experiences they were looking to have coming down the road. One of the things that Kroger did that made them successful is they tested the idea of the superstore concept. And with that, they developed a new model, realizing that there was need for that. They implemented that model, and by 1999, they replaced all their stores and, quite frankly, became the #1 grocer in the country at that time. So that's just an example of not being willing to face those facts. So in summary, we rated this concept as at number 5 as being one of the most important characteristics of leadership. We understand that it is very important to not only see where you're at the time or where you want to be, but also understand the facts that you're dealing with and what's at play. It's essential, obviously, to leadership, understanding the true nature of the situation, which gives you a great starting point for where you want to go and ultimately where you're going to end up. We decided that the ease of implementation on this was a level 3, and 3 only because it's not easy to face those facts, and we saw it with A&P. I think they knew the facts were there. They were very obvious to them, but they weren't willing to address them the way they should have, just as Kroger did. So the implementation part is really going to rely on the leadership of that organization, whether or not they think that what they're doing is going to be successful and carry them in the long run, or go ahead and face those facts and address them here and now. And that was our group's rating for that concept. We'll turn it over now to Yvette.
Most great leaders know the importance of creating an environment, not only where truth can be heard, but also people can be heard. If somebody doesn't feel comfortable expressing their own true belief, it's most likely that it's going to be very hard for them to hear it. So to create the climate where truth can be heard, there are 4 basic practices. The first one is to lead with questions, not answers. Great leaders most often start with the words, "I don't know." Alan Wurtzel, who was the CEO of Circuit City before it became Circuit City, they were on the verge of bankruptcy. And somebody asked him, "What are you going to do with the company? Where are you headed?" And he said, "I don't know." And from there on, asking questions, that's where he started to build what was at the moment a great company. You should ask questions to gain understanding, not to manipulate. For example, when you ask, "Do you agree with me?" That's a sort of manipulation. Also, don't ask questions to blame, to look for somebody to blame. Okay, the second one is to engage in dialogue and debates, not progression. Many of the best ideas and strategies of good to great companies came out of very harsh discussions and meetings. For example, Circuit City, many of the assistants or the secretaries testified that at the beginning those meetings were even violent, and but at the end it was easier for them to reach an agreement because they were able to express their true opinions. Okay, number 3 is to conduct autopsies without blame. This is basically, if you make a mistake, try to fix it. If you can't, don't look for somebody to blame and move on. And the last one is to build red flag mechanisms. Red flag mechanisms are mechanisms that help making ignoring the information impossible. This idea came from a company who had a strategy called Granite Rock, and it was called ShortPay. And what ShortPay did, it gave their customers the power to decide what and how much they were going to pay out of their invoice. And what this gave the company, they didn't give the company an option to ignore the customer's needs and wants. And what is different from ShortPay from any other survey is that ShortPay was a warning before losing their customers, not after. Okay, the truth is always around us. Sometimes we don't want to hear it or we don't want to express it. That's why it's very important to know what customers want and customers need. Also, to let other members of departments express their true opinions. And if you make a mistake, find out why and just let it go. As an example, is in 1978, Philip Morris acquired 7-Up, and it wasn't a very good idea because it only lasted 8 years, and after 8 years they had to sell at a loss. And what's interesting about this is that most executives were very comfortable talking about this. Some of them even said it was therapeutic for them just to let it out, and without any blame. The CEO did feel responsible for this, for the decision. He said he regretted not listening to those who were challenging his idea at the beginning. Also, no pointing fingers. Nobody blamed anybody, but he did say that he was going to take full responsibility for the bad choice, but that everybody had to take full responsibility of taking or learning the best as they could of the experience.
All right, so there's an example that we came together as a group, and it's, we said, let's talk about it, right? And this particular example came from an experience of one of our group members in where they were working in an environment where they had to deal with different entities. In this particular case, it was a tribal entity, one of the tribals from here in San Diego County. Well, the issues were that there were a lot of them. As far as miscommunications, the breakdowns in communications, and they just couldn't get the job done to carry out their mission together as a team. So they had to basically speak with truth, create that environment, invite everybody to the table, every stakeholder to the table, and essentially have it all out. But once they were able to do that and bring all the key players in and create the climate of truth where people can speak freely and honestly, they were able to identify many of those issues that they were struggling with that prevented them from moving forward to work together as a collaborative team. And with that being said, they solved the issues, they worked through the problems, and what ended up happening was a very good working relationship between our group members' team and the tribal teams as well. So that was a plus, and that was only accomplished through being able to create that environment of truth. So our rating on this as a leadership concept, just as important as facts being better than dreams, right, is creating this environment. And the climate is important, so important that we rated it number 5. If you're not willing to get the honest information, it's going to be tough for each and every one of us to make those hard and difficult decisions. Ease of implementation on this case, we also gave it a 3 because being truthful for a lot of people is not easy. And for various different reasons, doesn't necessarily make them a bad person if they can't be upfront and honest with individuals that they're dealing with. But it might be a struggle because of what the consequences may be at times, right? So it's going to be incumbent on the individual, if it's the individual in charge of making those decisions and creating that environment, or the culture of the organization. But it is given a rating of 3, and hopefully, within yourselves, you can kick that rating up by simply creating that environment in your own terms and making it work for you.
Okay, so the third concept is unwavering faith among the brutal facts. So the 2 main points I'm going to cover is confronting the brutal facts. This is something that the Good to Great companies did. It made them more resilient, stronger as a company in the end. The second fact is that they saw this as a sense of exhilaration, seeing that they had this competition, that they had someone to rise up above against. They didn't see it as a sense of discouragement. They saw it as an opportunity. So the next thing, so my example was Kimberly Clark versus Scott Paper. So this is Darwin Smith right here. I don't know if you guys remember him. It was in the first or second chapter he was introduced. He was raised as a farm boy, took himself through college, and once he became CEO, he actually got cancer. And I think that a lot of people would think that's a good excuse for kind of throwing in the towel and a good reason to be selfish, but he did not see that as an opportunity to do so. He did not stop making the long commutes to work and being as devoted to Kimberly Clark as he was. Unlike his competition at the time, Scott Paper, they were the actual leaders at the time that Procter & Gamble was starting to be successful. And once Procter & Gamble kind of took over the game, Scott Paper basically decided that they were going to throw in the towel. They accepted their rank as not first anymore, second. There's people who went to that meeting and basically recall how disheartened people were going to the meetings. Whereas Darwin, there's accounts of going to those meetings where he asked everyone to stand in a moment of silence because they were going to completely take over Scott Paper. And in the end, Kimberly Clark actually ended up buying out Scott Paper, and that's still how it is today. So the book also touches on some psychological duality, and what this is ultimately management wants to aim for this psychological duality. It's being able to stoically accept these brutal facts of reality. Yes, we're not the best. Yes, we have ways to improve, but that isn't a reason to be disheartened or discouraged. This is an opportunity. And also, while you're accepting those brutal facts, being able to maintain this unwavering faith and having a commitment to prevail. So just like Darwin, he had basically every reason to kind of just give up on the game, but he didn't take those chances to be selfish or feed into those excuses. So those are 2 important facts if you want to be able to have this good to great company. So next thing, when facing reality, we may need to take a company into a new direction. So you can't be afraid of taking these chances and these opportunities just because you may be at a point where it may seem like you don't have all the resources or it's a big leap at the time. Or develop a new business model, that would be an example of that. You should use these situations to create bigger opportunities and see the opportunity in the problems that come your way, because all companies are going to face some type of problems and obstacles. So it's basically how you overcome those that determines how you succeed as a company. The Stockdale paradox. So this is going to cover how when you retain the faith that you'll prevail regardless against difficulties, and at the same time you want to confront the brutal facts of current reality, whatever it may bring you. And this is a very interesting concept which was named after Admiral Stockdale, and Yvette's going to introduce that to us.
Admiral James Stockdale was a prisoner of war during the Vietnam War. He was imprisoned for 8 years. He lived without prisoner rights. He didn't know if he was going to live. He never lost his faith, even though he went to the extremes to help himself not lose faith and to help other prisoners. He beat himself up with a desk, I believe twice, because he didn't want to. The Vietnamese used to make these videos where they would portray their prisoners as well treated, and he didn't want to send that idea to Americans, so he beat himself up. And he also instituted rules for other prisoners. For example, after X times you're beat up, you have to release some information of what they want, just to keep their faith alive. Also, he came out with an internal communication system. For example, with a tap is A, and then tap space tap is B, and so on. So he could communicate with other prisoners because they were all isolated. And one time, all the rest of the prisoners, while they were sweeping, they all went with a tapping saying, "We love you, Admiral," because they were so grateful of what he had done. Also, through letters with his wife, he would send out and bring in information. And after his release, he became one of the highest officers in the history of the Navy, to receive aviator wings and the Congressional Medal of Honor.
I'm going to talk about a teen court program I used to run at the district attorney's office, and it's just a real example of how we had to face reality. And I don't know, you don't have to answer this if any of you had minor consuming tickets or not, but that was the #1 charge in our county for juveniles. And historically, they let them just go ahead and pay a fine. It's pretty amazing, just like a speeding ticket. You didn't have to call their parents or whatever, and if you had the $90 or whatever it was, you could go in and pay it. And every month you go out and have a party on Friday nights and just go pay your tickets. Never got on probation or anything. Well, somebody caught wind of that. They went to the legislature, and they decided, well, let's kick it around. Maybe we can have them go to juvenile court on that. And it came out of committee, and then it went through the House and passed. And I'm kind of watching this because I know if this passes, in about 6 months it'll become a law July 1st. And this would double our caseload if we ended up with all these minor consuming cases. And so sure enough, it goes to Senate, passes, governor signs it, and we now have over twice as many cases coming to us. The juvenile court didn't actually want them because they thought, well, these are mostly first-time misdemeanor offenders, they're nonviolent, and if they come to court, they lose their driver's license, and the parents didn't like that. And the courts didn't want them on probation for what they considered a status offense, like just because you're juvenile, it's illegal to drink or smoke or skip school or whatever. They don't want those ending up in jail. So they go, hey Dexter, why don't you take these over here in your pre-court program? And so what we had is our teen court, and this is an informal court. It's run through the DA's office. It's 90-day limit on it. But what we did is we looked at this and now we've only been running this one night a week. We're going to have to come up with some other solutions. And we basically had to face the reality, the brutal facts, and go, it's coming. We can't do anything about it. The magistrate judge and all these folks have said, we want them over here in diversion. And so we took them, and what we had to do is look at our process, our policies, and really streamline things to get people in for interviews. An example was instead of meeting privately one-on-one to talk about it because there is a confidentiality thing. We would meet in a group setting like this and just talk in generalities about what teen court is, just to save that much time. So we started running court a couple nights a week, and what we found, we didn't run out of volunteers because some just couldn't do it on Monday nights when we traditionally run it. Now they said, yeah, but I can do it Thursday night. So we ended up with more volunteers, more cases, and it was just a win-win in the end, but it was pretty scary at the beginning. But we had an opportunity to expand it, and no money, no extra staff. I suppose that's kind of the nature of business for a lot of folks. So it turned out to be okay for us. So. I think you're going to do the rating, right?
Yeah, so this is the last of the 3 ratings that we found in the concepts of Chapter 4 for leadership. And ideally, we want all these leadership concepts to be rated 5 across the board, 5 being the most essential, 5 to be the easiest to implement. But as you can see, even into the last 3rd concept, it's not always that easy, and it's not always that attainable. We gave it a number 4. We do think it's very important. And what we want to let you know in terms of this concept is that others will watch you closely. They will watch every move you make, every decision you make, things that you say, how you appear to them. Perception is key here, and they will be watching to develop that perception. You must know that courage does come from within. I mean, just talking about the Admiral there, I mean, what better story of unwavering faith than the Stockdale Paradox? That is something that is difficult, especially in some of the harshest conditions, to be able to tell yourself and build yourself up and say, regardless of how difficult this is, whatever the challenges are I'm experiencing, I'm going to get through this. That's going to come from within. You got to have that faith, develop it, build it, and believe in it, and that'll pull you through. Ease of implementation, again, we gave it a 3. First and foremost, you got to know yourself. You got to know who you are, what you're capable of and what you're not capable of. Again, facing those brutal facts. Dealing with facts rather than dreams. And you got to have that inner will to survive, obviously. You got to be a fighter in every situation in life, is my opinion, and I'm sure you can all share that with me. And more importantly, you got to be accountable to yourself. You cannot blame others for your inaction or misdeeds. You have to be able to look at yourself and say, you know what, this was my responsibility, I'll take it, I'll own it, and I'll get us through this. And so that's the rating that we gave it, and we're going to close it up here with a summary.
Thanks. Ruben? Just a quick summary and conclusion. In summary, facts are better than dreams. I think we kind of talked about that quite a bit. Facing reality. Now, concept number 2, climb where the truth can be heard. And I can tell you, I've sat on some boards, and one was with a rescue mission. Great group of people, and you know, we just kind of were praying. We actually opened with prayer, of course, but we would say, man, I hope there's no big issues we have to deal with at this meeting. And even if they have an agenda, things come up. Usually personnel matters and things. So we just had to accept them, deal with them, and move on. And it was just, but at least we could hear the truth from the executive office, the director. He says, I shouldn't have hired this person, whatever, but at least it was the truth. We knew how much it was going to cost us and what the penalties were going to be and things. So, concept number 3, the unwavering faith amid the brutal facts. I think Ruben just really nailed that one, so I'm going to leave that. In conclusion, you got to confront the brutal facts, be open and realistic for the data and the information from others, and never give up faith. So for our tie-in, that goes back to the beginning. It's like confront the brutal facts, as ugly as they are. All right. Thank you. These will administer. Oh yeah. I just wanted to show this one, just so we're at in chapter 4. I guess we're just at the beginning of the breakthrough, if I had to explain that, and just kind of getting up some momentum now. I guess now you get all these people, the right people on the bus, you get the truth coming in, start heading, breaking out. All right, thank you.
Any questions before Deidre administers the test?
I got my last.
Questions for any one of us in the group? Any other examples?